What's going on? What's going on? Wonderful Tuesday. Tuesday. Messed up already. Wonderful Thursday evening. I'm still a few days behind with my work schedule and all, but got a new chair tonight, so I'm kind of trying to get comfy in it. It's actually got a back on it. Usually my chair don't have a back. It's just a stool. But everybody hear me okay? All right. Well, good topic. Been waiting on this. Yeah, I'm still on the holiday schedule, no doubt. Yeah, I'm still many days behind. All right. Hope everyone had a good Christmas, had a good New Year. We spent, we had a good Christmas here ourselves. Spent the week after Christmas in a cold and wet Daytona. Had a lot of fun down there. Back at it now. Back to the daily grind, I guess you could call it. First video of 2018. Can't believe it's been well over a year since I started doing these. Actually, been close to a year and a half since I started doing them live. It's been almost 3 years since I started doing the actual tech videos. But anyway, moving on. Tonight we're gonna go over something that we also get a lot of phone calls about. I feel like a big boss man in this chair. I can lean back and do like you finna get in trouble or something. I've seen this pose a lot from bosses. But anyway, topic that we get a lot of calls about, dealing with push rods and when to lengthen them out or when to shorten them, when to run longer, when to run shorter. What does changing head gaskets affect on this? How much can I mill off my head and not affect my rocker angle? A lot of stuff to go over. I'm gonna kind of shoot through as quick as I can, and get some stuff done, then come back and I'll answer a few questions here in a little bit. I'm also gonna go over actual rocker arms a little bit. Some of the different rocker arms that we sell, what needs to be used with what, when springs and what springs you can and can't use, retainers, and as soon as I get done with the push rod thing. But first and foremost, when these engines come, and I'm primarily talking about the clone engine here, all this will relate to the Predator engine also, with the exception of the Hemi. And I'll kind of get on that toward the end. But the stuff I'm going over now is off the 196 clone or the non-Hemi Predator. It will affect it the same way as it does the clone. But when these engines come, they have, this is the stock push rod that comes in the box stock project in the clone engines now. It's what they call a stainless steel. It's a mild stainless steel. It's lightweight. This comes standard in all of them, so you don't have to buy new style push rods if you buy one of these box stock project engines to build an engine out of. It comes with the good push rods in it already. They're a pretty standard length. There are some push rods out there that are a little bit shorter, that some of them is a little under what they need to be, and they're doing that to try to get the push rods as light as possible. But AKRA and NKA, I know AKRA has a minimum length on the push rods, and like I say, there are some out there available that's a little bit shorter. So if you're buying push rods from manufacturers, make sure that you're getting the correct length, and then always measure them before you put them in, because we do it, everybody does it. Sometimes parts get put in the wrong bin, or sometimes things happen and the wrong part goes out. But always measure these push rods and look in your AKA rule book to see what the minimum length is, because you don't want to get tossed out on this. I had a message today from someone that has gotten tossed out because of short push rods. Not saying that some of these that come in the engine are not short. These are still made in China. So their tolerances over there is where we're dealing in tenths of a thousandths, they're dealing in this. But still, even if it comes stock in engine, you still need to measure them to make sure they're right. I said I would go over that. I've done it. Now I can get on. Like I say, these push rods are good for the box stock. They're good for builder prepared. These things will handle a 26-pound spring, you know, with something like a Mod 2 cam. But if you're going to, you know, like the BP2 cam or an F275 or anything like that, you need to be on some chromollies. Get into that when I get into the rocker part of it. All right, now what we're going to talk about is what affects the push rod length and when do you need to go shorter. This really doesn't affect the box stock that much. If you're building an AKRA style engine, this is going to kind of carry over into like the modified stuff. But it's still important to know of it and know what to do in the stock situation just in case it does come up. Right here is a short block of mine that I'm actually building an engine out of, and it would happen to be here at my house, so I brought it here to use it. This is a short block. Dadgum, this darn camera. Ready to go together. Short block's already built, flywheel's already on it, it's timed, ready to go. But I'm going to use it for my little demonstration tonight, if I can get set up here. This new chair ain't working out. Alright, where's my head? Right here. Alright, and just for video purposes, I've already got a stainless valve in it and the billet retainer. But like I say, this can affect the stock engine, so I'm gonna go over it also. Now, when these engines, you know, from the factory, the BSP engines, the clone engines, they come with the thin metal head gasket on it already. So gasket thickness is not going to play too big of a part here, but milling the block and milling the head will, because all this is set up from the factory with this gasket with the standard deck height and the standard deck height. When you cut this head or the block down, you know, probably more than 30 thousandths. If you go 40, 50, or 60 thousandths, that's when you get into the area of needing to wonder about your push rods. Because as you cut this head, the head moves down toward the piston more. But your push rods are going to actually technically become longer. Because as the head goes down, the push rod stays the same. And what that's going to do is going to affect your rocker angle. And yeah, right here. Now, what we're talking about, and I've done this in other videos, but I just kind of wanted to go in a little more in depth with it. I've done a video on valve tricks and tips and stuff to do, you know, to get you up to AKRA spec and this, that, and the other. But what we're talking about with rocker angle is, this is not going to work. I thought I had this worked out, but it's not going to work. There we go. Alright. You can see right here the angle of the rocker. If you notice, it has a slightly downward angle on the push rod side. Alright, you do not want, oh, that's why I wouldn't go on there, because I didn't have it rotated around right. Building 101. You do not want this rocker to have an angle. Well, I know it's going, there it goes. Damn, I hate this phone. Sitting it with zero lash with the valve side lower. Alright, that is an improper rocker angle. Like I said before in my other videos, there is no set in stone perfect angle. What you're looking for is a downward angle on the push rod side. Now you can go too far with it. You know, if that angle is down too far, what it does is it pushes the valve at an awkward angle. You want a proper rocker angle on that valve so that when it pushes it down, it goes straight down. If you've got too much on it, what it's going to try to do is push that valve forward. When it goes down, it's going to wear your guides funny, and it's going to wear your valve out. And if you don't have enough angle, when it pushes it down, it's going to try to pull the valve back to you, and it's going to wear your valves and your guides out also on the opposite side. So what you're looking for is a slightly downward angle at the back to get proper push. And a lot of times the higher lift cam you're running, your rocker's going to move further. You need a little more on the push rod side. And like I say, when you cut this head, I should have put the thing on the other side. But when you cut the head, like I say, moves down, the push rod gets longer. Now we make, like I say, this is a stock OEM style push rod. It's a pretty standard length. It's like 5-inch 260 or something like that. But that's considered standard length, like 5-inch 260, somewhere around in there. Like I say, they make some of these shorter, and if you use them for modified applications, those work well. But for stockers, you need to make sure they're not too short. Now, when you go in these modifieds, and you're cutting these heads 40, 50, 60 thousandths, and you're cutting the blocks, you're really adding a whole lot of length to that push rod. 60 thousandths doesn't sound like a lot, but when your rocker angle is, pretty close to where it's, where it needs to be. How about that? There we go. I just moved in a little closer. And you cut that head down, that's going to make that push rod longer, and is going to upset your angle. It's going to have it looking like that. That you don't want that, like I say, because it's going to push it down awkwardly on your guides and going to wear your valve out, and it could start smoking after a while. It can also drop a valve if you've got the stock retainers on it. But the more you cut the head, the more you're going to have to shorten your push rods. Now, people ask me all the time, how do you determine what push rod length you need once you cut them? I tell people, whether you're putting on thick gaskets, thin gaskets, you've cut the head, you cut the block, whatever, start with a stock push rod if you're using stock style rockers. Put it in there, zero lash it, make sure everything is rotated like it's supposed to be, not like I did a while ago, and look at your angle. You want your slightly downward angle with it on zero lash. If it's not down enough, that means you got to shorten the push rod up. Now we do sell shorter push rods in the chromoly rod. Stock is 5.260, and we sell one that's a good bit shorter, just for this type of application. You cut the head down a lot, or you run a small base circle cam. These push rods usually are a drop in and go. And also with other style of rockers, those shorter push rods are needed sometimes because of the way they're built, or they sit lower, down in the cup or whatever. But start with a stock rocker. Now, when you run these applications that need a longer rocker arm, which is not all the time, but we also have push rods that are cut to length, meaning they only come with the ball in one end, and the other end doesn't have the ball in it, and you can make the rocker is whatever length you need. They're going to be way longer than what you need. So start with a stock rocker or a stock push rod, put it in there, and if it's down, whatever you need, you kind of measure from where the push rod is up to the rocker arm, and you can get a rough measurement on this. But always take in consideration that the thickness of the ball sticking out as part of your measurement. A lot of people take the cut the length push rods, and they'll get their measurement here, and they'll measure the push rod, but don't take in consideration the ball has got to go in also as part of the measurement, and they'll cut them too short. But use a stock length push rod to get your base measurement, and then you can kind of figure out how much you need to cut or don't cut off of the cut the lengths. If you just need one a little bit shorter, like I say, we already sell them. These are a GXC 420-20, I think is the part number. I could be wrong on that, but it is a GXC number. And the standard chromoly length one is a DJ 1070 CM. But setting the rocker angle, especially with higher lift cams, is very, very, very important when you're using stock style rockers, because these things, as I said in my other videos, will bottom out. I've seen them bottom out with stock cams in them. That's where I would use some of the shorter rockers. Yeah, I use them. You know, that's part of building. You know, you push the envelope any place you can. And if the shorter rocker arms are available, I'm going to use them either for lighter weight or for, you know, getting my rocker angle right. Because sometimes with these stock cams, these stock rocker arms will bottom out before the cam reaches full lift, and that's only like 240 thousandths. So, and I hear people all the time saying they run these stock rockers on 275 cams and 308 cams, and I'm like, they bottom out with me sometimes on a stock cam. But that's where a shorter push rod is going to come into effect, because if you're running, you can run a 308 with these stock rockers, you know, in a 26-pound spring. It's rough on it, but it can work. But that's where you're going to need a shorter rocker arm, because that cam is going to have higher lift on it, and you're going to have to pull that rocker angle down just a little bit more so that it doesn't bottom out before it reaches full lift. Because if it bottoms out, that's where you bend studs, that's where you break studs, that's where you break rockers, and that's where you bend push rods. You know, if you're having a push rod problem, if you keep breaking rockers or bending studs, that's your problem is in your rocker right here. Something was like a mosquito. I know it ain't a mosquito, but anyway, I started itching there for some reason. Because this thing, you know, if you bottom your rockers out, you got a lot of stuff flexing around up here, and it can actually wiggle around in here and cause the threads in the head right here to get weak, and the stud comes out. But higher lift cams need a little bit more angle than stock lift cams do. Now, when it comes to like some of the aftermarket rockers that we have, I'm going to show you a few sets that we offer. This was one of the stock square tip ones that has actually been clearance there for lifts. I don't know if y'all can see it or not. But just on the very tip there is where we grind them at. That was another video I done. This is actually the rocker I use in that video. But some of the other rockers that we use or that we have are little ratio rockers. And with the boss man's watching tonight, so I got to act good. But these little ratio rockers, they're little stamp steel rockers. We sell them in a 1-to-3 ratio, and we sell a lot of these, and a lot of people use them. And rocker angle is very important on these because they're a ratio rocker. When you have a ratio rocker, what happens is, what makes it ratio, usually from the ball point to the tip is usually the same length. Now this is a square tip and this is a round tip, but it's usually from where they connect at, they're usually the same length. Where the ratio comes in at is on the push rod side. If you notice, this one is a lot closer from where the push rod goes down to where the stud goes. That's where the ratio comes in at. Is the closer it gets to that stud, the push rod, the more lift it gains and the quicker it makes the ramp of the cam. Which means rocker angle is very, very important on these. Probably more so than with a stock cam because higher lift. Now, one thing that you've got to do when you go to a ratio rocker, which I just found out because I didn't do it, is change the guide plate. And the guide plate is located under, you have to take the studs out of the head, or the jodies as we call them around the shop. Take the studs out of the head and replace it. Here's the guide plate. It's a standard box stock project guide plate. And we replace it with this billet one here. It's a good bit thicker, but what it does is it allows the push rods to get closer to the stud and helps guide them. That's why it's called a guide plate. But simple. You just take one out, 12mm deep well socket, and put them right back in. Torque them down to around 200 inch-pounds is what I usually torque them to. Put this on so I don't need this head to come off and mess up my block, because like I say, this is an engine that is being built to race, so don't need all my hard work messed up. But just put the studs in, torque them down 200 inch-pounds, and you know, you can use the OEM push rods. Now these guide plates, as I showed you, are cut out on the bottom, so it doesn't actually hold the push rod up. You're going to have to put them in yourself. You know, rocker on, and just start the nut, and then reach down here and put your rocker arm. Make sure it is in the lifter. I don't know why I do all this backwards. I am left-handed. I do all this stuff backwards on videos. Tighten it down. Now, like I say, my opinion, and this is just my opinion, which don't really mean much. If you're going to order a set of these little stamped steel ratio rockers, I would go ahead and order a set of the shorter chromoly push rods, because you're going to need it. This is a stock cam that's in this engine. Well, it's a CL3. But when you put these ratio rockers on it, it's going to take the stock lift of around 240 thousandths, and it's going to, because of the ratio, it's going to add 30% lift to it. So it's going to be around 295 with the ratio rockers on it. So it's going to move that rocker arm more. And this is basically a stock rocker, just with different ratio on it. It's built basically the same way, out of the same material, the same design, but it's going to add a whole lot more lift to it, and it's going to speed the ramp of the cam. It's going to make the cam work better by adding more lift and speeding the ramp up. But rocker angle is very important with them, and I know I showed you in another video on how to check to make sure the rocker isn't bottoming out, but I'll show you again. 0 lash, run it all the way down to full lift, and then take it. Sometimes, now I got really lightweight springs in this, but you could take like a screwdriver and stick under here and make sure. See, that one's bottomed out right there. Nope, it's got a little bit. It's got a little bit. But take a screwdriver, stick under here, and make sure that you can still move it some. Now that's not bottomed out. It's close, but it's not bottomed out. A lot of people use these little rocker arms, these little stamped steel ones as we call them, the ratio rocker arms. We sell a lot of them, but there again, these are a basic stock design made of basically the same material and as the stock ones are. So they're not really no stronger, they're just a ratio. Now, I don't recommend using these on high lift cams. F275s, something like a Mod 2 with like some 22-pound springs is as big as I would go with these. I know people that run them on bigger. I understand that. People do things all the time that's outside of recommendations. I do it also, but I recommend these little DJ 1100 stamped rockers. Anything bigger than a Mod 2 or 22-pound spring, you need to go to a better rocker arm. And a better rocker arm, a better affordable style rocker arm. These are, these are around 10, 12 bucks a piece. They're cheap. That's why we sell a lot of them, but a lot of people use them outside of what they're recommended for on F275 cams with heavy springs, and they wind up sometimes breaking or bending or warping. Now, if you're going to use an F275, you're going to have to use some big springs. If you're using a 308, you're going to have to use some big springs. The Black Mamba, you got to use big springs, and we've got these little rockers for that. They bolt up to the stud the same way. You have to use the guide plate the same way, but they're a roller tip, and they're made of a billet type steel material. Very heavy duty, very, are pretty good. It's nothing. It is nowhere near a true roller set, which I'm fixing to show you in a minute. But as far as an affordable rocker that's going to hold up to some good springs and some good RPMs, this is good. I mean, I use these on engines quite a bit. On the mild stock appearings, I sent one out, I believe, day before yesterday. This got this exact set on it with a BP2 cam in it and some 26-pound springs, actually 36-pound springs. They're really good. Bolt right up, just like the other rockers do. You got to hold your push rod up because your guide plate don't. Tighten them down, set them the same way you do stockers. Now, with these, I also recommend the shorter chromoly push rods, the GXC 4. Usually I can spot these numbers out quickly like in a hurry. GXC 412-20, I think it is. Anyway, it's under GXC. If you go on our website. But bolt them on the same way, and use the shorter push rod to help your angle, because these are machined a little bit different. You know, they'll handle a lot more lift, but still, you know, you want to make sure that they don't bottom out, because they're still working off of this ball right here. You know, but these walkers work great, and they're around $100 a set, and use stock studs, and you know, they're a good little rocker, you know, for the money. But there again, you know, if you're going to use ratio rockers, I recommend go ahead and getting the shorter chromoly push rod. I believe they're around the same price, but you know, when it comes to these higher lift cams, I'd rather you have a little too much on the push rod side than not enough on the valve side. It just tends to work a little better that way, but you still don't want too much. Now, as far as different rockers go, like I say, we've got the little stamp steel ones, good for mild applications. CL2, CL3 cams, even the new CL4, the BSP cams, BSP3, BSP2, they work great on them, you know, with a set of 22-pound springs. Anything above that, if you want to go to a good 26-pound spring or a 36, higher lift cams, higher duration, I recommend these. You know, good, cheap, affordable way for stock appearing, you know, mild, very, very, I don't like using the term open, because people say, I want to build an open engine, they want to put a stock appearing carburetor on it. To me, open is this. Welded blocks, you know, everything welded up, big bore. I'm going to get this in a minute. But stock appearing, you know, stock appearing carburetors, 390 carburetors, these work great on it. You know, they work great. But if you're going to go to the open, or you want something, you know, the best money can buy on your stock appearing engine, you need to go to a set of true rollers. And the ones that we sell, in my opinion, are the best on the market right now. They're the best you can get, or we wouldn't sell them. And these are the Gauge Black Venoms. These are a true roller rocker. They got a roller tip, and they've got a roller through the center. It's needle bearing all the way around. And as far as roller rockers go, these things are as easy to install as you can get, far as something this high tech. It's simple as putting other rockers on. You just take your studs out, and they come ready to go on. They've already got these little spacers that go over the stud there, and if you look, you know, they're cut out to cradle down where the stud comes through, and it comes already assembled. But you know, take things apart, not take it apart, but you know, take the studs out of it, and take these off and blow it with an air hose, and just make sure there's no accumulated stuff out the box or anything on it. And they just bolt right on. And I don't use a guide plate with these. Some people say use them, some people say don't. I've never had a problem not using them. Never had a push rod come out. And you know, with these, typically I'll use either standard length push rods, but most of the time I use the shorter push rods, because they just tend to get the rocker angle right. And put them down, tighten them up, 200 inch-pounds, same way as the other ones. Now with these, you'll want to take the adjusters here on the bottom. You know, they adjust here. You just tighten these down. They don't tighten in the middle like the stock one does. You just go ahead and tighten these down 200 inch-pounds, and the adjusters are right here. And it's got an Allen wrench in it that I did not bring in here. So I got to actually take them apart. No big deal though. Usually you don't have to do this. There's a little Allen screw in there, And just like a car, you know, if anybody ever adjusted valves, you know, billet rockers on a car, does the same way. We sell these in 1-to-3 ratios. We can get 1-to-2s, but we stock 1-to-3s because they sell more. You know, and also with any of the roller tip rockers that we sell, really and truly, if you're using any ratio rocker, you need to go to a stainless valve, because it's just you know, with a ratio rocker, it puts more stress on everything. You need stiffer springs, and stock valves to me and stock retainers, just I don't trust them. I've seen too many fail. I've seen too many twist, and you can't get the valve out. And if you go to any ratio rocker, 1-to-3, 1-to-2s, whether it's the little stamp steel ones or the roller tip ones, you need to go to a stainless steel valve and stainless steel retainers. And when you do that, that way you can run these little performance lash caps on them. And one of the things that the lash caps do, you run them on both sides, unlike the stock engine where it just comes on one. That lash cap helps get the rocker angle, you know, up where it needs to be, and it actually gives the roller a little more area to roll on. Because you know, if it's just rolling just on the valve, there is a possibility that the valve could float and it go a little bit past it and catch the tip on the valve and break the tip off the rocker. Lash caps help prevent that. It helps the roller from beating on the end of the valve and wearing the end of the valve out. These are basically wear pads. They wear out so that the valve doesn't. But it also gives a little more area for it to roll on. We're talking thousandths of an inch here, not a whole lot of area, but it still gives a little more area for it to, in case it floats, you got a little more contact area. And with the lash caps, probably 8 out of 10 times, if not 9 out of 10 times, you're going to need the shorter push rods anyway. So if you're ordering any ratio rocker arms, I highly recommend just going ahead and getting the shorter push rods and be done with it. But like I say, these are some of the easiest rockers I've ever worked with on anything. And I'm not talking cars, motorcycles, anything. These things are as simple as they get. They just bolt on. You take the adjuster out, slide your push rod down through it, or you can work it up from the bottom like I do sometimes. People, why y'all message me when y'all know I'm in the middle of a show? Slide your push rod down through it, or you can work it up from the bottom like I do. It's just a lot easier because you got to put these rockers on all at one time. You put them on, you tighten them down, and there you go. Go ahead and put the short one in like I should have done to begin with. And this may not be the correct way to do it. I've seen Mr. Max. If y'all look in the comment section here, Mr. Max is on here. That's the guy that actually builds these gauge rockers. If Max answers any questions on here, he is the man that makes them. He's the man that designs them. He's the man that sells them. And he's the man that I call when I have questions on them. So he is the man when it comes to these rockers. But this may not be the way he says to do it, but this is the way I've done it. If it's wrong, Mr. Max, please correct me. But I put my rockers on, torque them down to 200 inch-pounds, take the adjusters out. You know, usually what you do is you just loosen up. It's a 3/8 nut. Just loosen it up, and then I forget the size of the Allen wrench and take it all out at once. And then I just drop my rockers or my push rods down through it and wiggle them around, get them on the, make sure they're on the lifter down there, and then I put my adjusters back in with the Allen wrench and just screw it down until it comes up to where you need it to be. It's going to be kind of hard to do it without the wrench here because I got to go a little further than what I need to. Yeah. And she hit the floor. We'll just use the Allen piece out the center of it. But, cause see, once it drops down like that, it's kind of aggravating to get them up sometimes. That's what she said. But, Nice and quiet then, wasn't it? It's odd not hearing Landon in there hollering, ain't it? He must be watching something good on TV. Well, the road race champion of the world just joined in, y'all. Darren Green right there. He is from right outside of, I believe, Timminsville, South Carolina. Same hometown as Mr. Cale Yarbrough. And he is the road race champion of the world. So, if y'all know Darren, y'all just give him a high five next time you see him and tell him it's from Jody. I got oil on my hands, that's why I'm having to use this rag to turn that adjuster. Alright, there we go. But, anyway, these rockers, simple. Simple as can be. You put them on, torque them down, run your push rods through them, put your adjuster back on it, and you're good to go. Now, rocker angle with these is a little harder to see. Dadgummit. That, I got it a little loose here so I can move it around. But here's the roller. Dang it, the one in the back is, okay, there we go. But it's harder to see the angle on these because of the way they're made. Because the front of them have a downward slope to them, so they're always going to look like that they're tilted forward. But what I look at is right underneath the roller area, and then right underneath the area, you can't see it right here, right underneath the area where the push rod goes in, it's almost symmetric. And you can kind of get a good look from the bottom of them, not the top, but the bottom, on how your angle is. But like I say, most of the time I run the shorter push rods in them. It just works out that way. Some engines I've been able to run the standard length in. But that's, you know, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and get the shorter ones because of the ratio of them, and that way you can get everything down the way it needs. And these, the rocker angle on these is kind of harder to set because they're a shaft mounted rocker. A lot of times you get what you get, but Mr. Mac's done such a good job making these. They're going to be pretty close to the right angle with either one of the push rods, depending on how much you cut. Like I say, this head here has not been cut. This block has not been cut. This is all standard length. So my angle is going to be a little off from what it needs to be. Because normally on this would be a modified engine. I would cut the head a good bit. I usually just square up the block, you know, check it, make sure it's right, depending on what I'm putting in, where I want my piston to be. But I usually cut a good bit off the head, so that's going to push my rockers down and going to move my angle up. But unless you're cutting down past the fin, a lot of times these rockers are going to come out the box, especially with the shorter push rods, just about dead on the money. I mean, he done a good job with these. There's not much improvement that anyone can make on these rockers. I'm pushing you a lot here, Mr. Max. I'd like a free t-shirt if you got one. I will wear it during my shows, as you know. This is some of my local guys here. Let me get this out of the way so I can do some t-shirting. These are from my Hamilton guys down from the Berlin, Georgia area. They run my engines. They haven't been racing long. They've come a long way. They've won a race or two. I think they won a race last year. His older son won one. His younger son is like that close every week. You know, they gonna get it. But they sent me a shirt. I've had a lot of other folks send me shirts, but they're sending me shirts of other people's products that I really can't wear while doing this show. I kind of should have been specific about the shirts that people send me, that it needs to be kind of race team shirts. You know, either put your picture on it yourself. I don't care, but just I can't really wear shirts that promote other people's products while I'm doing a show that writes my paychecks. Y'all understand. Alright, but anyway, Tanner and Aspen, here you go. I'm like Billy the Kid said, and Young Guns 2, I'm going to make you famous. But, alright. I think I've soaked up the Mr. Gage enough tonight that I can get me a free t-shirt. That I'm gonna kind of look through some questions here. Then I'm gonna go into some let's see. It's nice when the champion of road racing himself comes on here and congratulates me on my Daytona win. You don't think I was going to get through the video without saying that, didn't you? Yeah, we won Daytona. There it is, right there. I'm not going to drink nothing out of it tonight because a lot of people's handled it, and I'm a germaphobe. And plus, I've already got other stuff in here to drink. But, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Road Race Champion. It's nice to know that not only not race along with the Road Race Champion, but the king of karting himself. So, I'm in with good company. Yeah, Jeff. Also, y'all see my Lucas stuff up here. Jeff, another road race friend of mine, which ironically, I'm the one that, pretty much worked with Lucas a little bit and tested all their stuff and helped get their products going. We was the first major kart shop to use the Lucas, and I worked with it for months and months and months with the Lucas karting oil to get it where it needs to be. It made a few changes on it. It was a good product to begin with, but, and I have to call Jeff to get stuff from Lucas. I got a banner from him, and I got this, little rope off stuff, which I thought looked pretty cool up there over that. Actually, I'm trying to hide stuff over here. I don't know if y'all can see it or not, but, that's some bedding stuff out of another bedroom that we got. We're moving stuff around. But, thought I would use it to hide that, but, alright, I got off subject way too much. Let me, thank you again, Jeff, for all that stuff. I appreciate it. Good God, there's a lot of questions. Holy smokes. I haven't been paying attention, as usual. Alright, y'all give me just a few seconds to go through all this. Stuart, yes, that is a nice flywheel. That is actually one of our new 6689 Speedway flywheels. We've changed the fin design on it a little bit, along with a few other things of it, but this is a much lower drag flywheel than anything out there. This has more speed potential in it than any flywheel on the market. What this basically does, I know this ain't got nothing to do with topic night, but I do still get paid to sell ARC products, okay? And tomorrow's Friday, and I like to get a paycheck tomorrow. So what this flywheel does, any of y'all that have dynos or been around people that dyno, when you put an engine on a dyno, you get it tuned with your jetting and your timing and all, and you got it good, you put tape around the blower housing. And a lot of people think that you put tape on the blower housing to control heat. There's a little bit of that to it, but what we put tape on the blower housing for primarily is to cut down the drag on the flywheel, because there's less air going over the flywheel. That thing's spinning at 6,500 RPMs. That creates a lot of pressure on these to pull. It slows the engine down. But what we've done now with our new fin design is you're getting the same output without the tape that you was getting with the tape. Usually you get an engine tuned just right and you tape up the blower housing on it, you could pick up 2, 3, sometimes even 4 tenths just by doing that on top end. You're getting that now with this flywheel with no tape on it. And this thing will be very beneficial with like plate engines, because plate engines usually don't run hot anyway, especially purples and greens and reds. You can throw a little more time into it and tape the blower housing up completely and get a whole lot of drag taken off the flywheel. But yeah, 6689 for the clone, AKRA, NKA approved and legal, ready to go on the shelves. Call us up and bolt on some speed. Now maybe I get a paycheck tomorrow. Colden, Oklahoma. Rhode Island, how y'all doing? Carlton. Kentucky. I've been keeping a list of all the states that all the states that's been tuning in, and we've been, I want to say around 37, 38 states. Man, I thought that said Charlie Murphy. I'm sorry. thank you on the Daytona. Yeah, we worked hard down there. I worked my butt off Thursday, and all the other guys did too. They helped me out a lot. You know, the team I'm down there with, they really helpful. They want to see everybody in the team do good and win. Between a Honda block and a clone block, Honda, especially if you're building modifieds. If you're going to build a modified, it's best to start with a Honda block and then bore it to whatever size you want with, even if that means putting a bigger sleeve in it. Now the Predator blocks have a bigger bore and a bigger stroke from the factory, but they're the same block as a Predator. They'll break just as easy. I've seen Honda blocks break, and I've broken them, but they're better to begin with. Mr. Jeremy Parsons is watching tonight. Bullfrog Motorsports. Y'all check him out. I want a free t-shirt. I want a Bullfrog t-shirt because I just mentioned you in my show. And I just said I couldn't promote other people's products, and here I am doing it. Jeremy's a good guy. I like him a lot. He's a real good guy, real helpful guy. All right. Man, there's a lot of questions on here. I'm really sorry, y'all. I got way behind on this. I got a 1-to-5 rocker, 6.5 mil head, dual springs. What pushrod link should I use? 1-to-5 rockers? Wow. Whew. Man, that's gonna put a lot of pressure on the pushrod. I'd just go ahead and start with the shorter chromolyes, the GXC 412-20, I think. I've said a different number every time. I'm sorry, but yeah, I'd start with the short length chromoly because you're gonna need it with that. Charles Rose, we've got some aftermarket rods for the Kohler. I'm not sure what size Kohler you need, but the Kohler, they got like a 212 Kohler, and I believe we got one for like the lawnmower version. Tell me what kind of Kohler you got. We may have it or may have something that will match up to it. Florida. Yeah, I'm fixing Michael. I'm finna get into the Hemi head right now. I really can't. I'll go through these questions a little later. I got to kind of get on done with this. All right. All that we was talking about with the box stock and the Predator, you know, that they affect it. You get the same effects from both. You know, even the Gen 3 Predator, the non-Hemi Predator, it comes with a thin head gasket on it. So unless you're cutting the head a whole bunch, this, that, and the other, stock pushrod length is okay with it. And you know, the Predator push rods look a little bit different than the clone ones. The clone ones, the ones that come, you know, what we call the stainless steel, the racing ones, they have a heated area, you know, where it was heated and the ball was put in. People ask me how you can tell the difference. This is how. The clone ones, the new style ones that come in the engine now, they're heated so that the ball can be inserted in. The Predator ones are not. They almost look one piece. In fact, I think they are. Yeah. They're a one piece. The ball does not come out. It's all made into it. I'm sorry. This $900 iPhone won't focus. But that's how you can tell. Burnt, not burnt. Clone, Predator. Alright. Now, with the Hemi head, you got a whole different animal. This is the only Hemi head I had that I could use. This is one of my, actually this is my Outlaw open style engine. This is a 14.5 cubic inch open engine. Notice I don't say motor. I say engine proper. Now with the Hemi head, this is another set of rockers that was sent to me. We don't stock these yet, but these are the new billet rockers, 1-to-2 rockers for the Hemi from NR Racing. I've never run them. They were sent to me several months ago, and I'm just now getting around to doing them. Sorry. But with the Hemi comes from the factory with the thicker head gasket on it. You know, the big, thick fire ring style gasket. So if you go from the thick Hemi gasket down to a thin one, you're taking 30-something thousandths off the head without even cutting it. That's not going to affect the rocker arms that much. I've used... What do you want, stupid cat? I've used the Hemi plenty of times in stock form, modified form, whatever, going from the thick head gasket down to the thin one and it not affect the rocker angle that much. Mainly because the adjuster, and I did not bring a daggum Hemi rocker. I knew I forgot something. Hunter told me I was going to forget something. I forgot something. But the Hemi rocker, the adjuster is on the valve. You adjust it from up here on the valve, not down here on the push rod. You know, the Hemis, for those of you that don't know, are shaft mounted. This is a stock factory Hemi head, and the rockers are shaft mounted. They don't look like this. These are aftermarket, but they're mounted on a shaft. They don't have the screw like the clone does, or the non-Hemi. Ooh, I just got oil on my wife's stool. Let me sleep on the couch tonight. But the adjuster on the stock one is up here on the valve. So the rocker angle can be off a little bit, and it still work the valve okay. Because it's got a big lash cap on both sides, and you get good movement and good pattern up there. But when we go to the aftermarket rockers, and the ones that we normally sell look like this. This is the steel rocker, also made by NR Racing, that we get, that are for the Hemi. And the only ones that we sell right now are in 1-to-2 ratio. Either the steel, and if we start carrying the aluminum ones, they're in 1-to-2 ratios also. But when you install these on the Hemi, you must go to a clone length push rod. And what I mean by that is, here, which one is it? Here it is. Here is a stock length clone push rod. Here is a Hemi. Where's all this dirt coming from? This is my pool table in here. Stock length clone, Hemi. See how much longer they are? The Hemi push rod is a lot longer than the clone or the Gen 3 non-Hemi Predator. But because of the way this rocker arm, when you take the stock rocker arms off, you have to, for those of you that's never done it before, they have little clips right here. You just, little C-clips. You take a flat screwdriver, you get under it, and you just pop it off. But be careful, because if this thing flies off and goes somewhere, it's hard to find replacements for them. I mean, some, like Fastenal, places like that may have them, but as far as calling up a cart shop and saying it, you know, might have some off a pull-off, they may not. But take a little flat screwdriver, pry it up. Actually, you'll want to take the outsides off. Outside here, and then you'll pull the shaft straight out. But leave the ones on the inside, but remove the outside, pull the shaft out. Take the stock rocker off, and again, you're more than likely going to want to be on stainless steel valves and billet retainers anytime you go to a ratio rocker. I'm assuming we've already got that. And when you put the rocker on, you know, slide the same pin right back in it and lock it. But because this rocker sits lower on the shaft, and because the adjuster's on the back, you have to run stock length chromoly push rods in it, because it sits a lot lower on all of them. Any of the Hemi roller rockers that we sell, that we can get, or the NR's got, all of them take the stock length clone rocker, which is a 1070 CM. You cannot run the Hemi rocker push rods with the ratio rockers, because they sit lower, they will not work. Get calls all the time. People say, man, my rockers is all jacked up. What did I do wrong? Well, you just got the wrong push rods in it. Simple. But a couple of problems that you're going to have with the Hemi going to a ratio rocker. Number one, the Hemi has a short installed height. As I've said in my other videos, I went over this one night in one of my other videos, that the installed height for the spring is much, much shorter than it is for a clone or a Predator. So lift is something that's very limited in a Hemi. Now, of course, this head has been cut out and it's got dual springs in it. You know, this head will handle over 450 lift the way it is. But most of the time with these Hemis, I tell people a good Mod 2 and some ratio rockers is all you need. And because the Hemi, the way the head is on it, because the way the valves are canned and are angled, they flow a lot better, especially when they're ported. They flow excellent when they're ported. But a Hemi head is not for, I hate using this term, but for the amateur builder, because that's still what I consider myself as an amateur. But you got to do a lot of work to get ratio rockers, bigger springs, and all that stuff in it. They're not just a plug and play all the time like the other engines can be. Because the Hemi, like I say, you got to, if you want 36-pound springs or a lot of lift, you got to cut the spring pockets deeper and wider. Now, like a Mod 2, you can throw some stainless steel valves in it with some billet retainers and some lash caps, 1 to 2 rockers, 26-pound springs. You'll have you a dynamite little setup. Yeah, that's a very good combination for the Hemi. But you're going to be really, really, really close on springs, because the exhaust side is the side that usually coil binds. Coil bind is when the spring collapses all the way and the cam is not at full lift. The exhaust side is shorter. Usually, from what I've measured on them, the exhaust is at coil bind at about 320 to 30 thousandths lift. And a Mod 2 with 1 to 2 rockers on it is around 275-ish, 280. So you can get that in there with 26-pound springs most of the time, but still, always check for coil bind when you put ratio rockers on a Hemi and you don't cut the pockets. And 26-pound springs is as big as you're going to be able to put in there without cutting the spring pockets. But if you do all that work or have someone do it for you, you know, you can put some pretty high lift stuff in these things, but there's still problems with piston to valve clearance and stuff like that. Like I say, the Hemi head, if you're going to want to modify an engine, the Hemi head is a good head, is a great flowing head, is a power making head, but it is not for the faint of heart. If you don't have experience with these Hemi heads, get with somebody that does. You know, get somebody to make you a head, get somebody to walk you through it, get somebody to build it for you, or build a whole engine for you and send it to you. Because it can be expensive learning how to do things with the Hemi head. I know. I've tore up some stuff with them trying to learn them. But another one of the issues with the Hemi head and going to the ratio rockers, because the adjusters are on the pushrod side of the engine, whenever the valve goes up, this has got some pretty stiff springs in it, the rocker adjuster goes up in the air and will hit the valve cover. You've got a couple of options there. You can order some valve cover extensions. There's several kart shops out there that make them and got them to just lift your valve cover up. You have to put longer bolts in it to clearance it for the push rod or the rocker adjusters. Or do what I do. I'm always one for fixing things the way they are instead of going out and, you know, buying something when I could just fix it. What I do is I take a paint pen, yellow, silver, red, blue, whatever, and I just paint the ends of the adjusters. I put the valves on with my lash caps and everything at 0 lash, and I paint them, and really quickly take the valve cover with no gasket on it, set it up there on it, I rotate the engine around. And what you're going to see, that paint is going to touch the inside of the valve cover, and it's going to show you where it's hitting. Now, 99% of the time, you're going to have to remove the baffle from the inside of the cover. There's 2 little bolts. There's a bolt here and a bolt there, and the baffle comes out of it. And you're going to have to take the baffle out, and then down here is where you're going to have to do your clearancing. And as you see mine, you know, there it is. It's machined out for clearancing the adjusters. You can do it with a Dremel. You can do it with yeah, I ain't gonna respond to that one, Brandon. You know, Hunter does, you know, you hand me my check every Friday, so you talk about him all you want to, but I'm gonna get him donuts in the morning just for that. But shit, where was I at? You made me lose my train of thought, man. Oh yeah, use a paint pen, paint them up, take your baffle out, because like I say, this is the area you're going to be clearancing right here, and it's going to have to remain out. You cannot run the baffle in it unless you use an extension on your valve cover. You know, they're for sale. I mean, people, I think NR's got them. You know, he makes these rockers, so he makes the baffle extenders. But if you don't want to do that, take the baffle out, paint them, no gasket, rotate it around. You'll see where it touches, machine it out, you're good to go. And if you're running one of our billet side covers, again, it's my job to sell products, y'all. One of our billet side covers, you know, with the vent tubes and all right here, the baffle's not that important in here. You can run without it. Now, if you don't have a billet side cover on it, which if you're building a modified, you've got to have a billet side cover on it. It's just a fact of nature. I mean, there's no way around it. It adds durability, and dang, it just looks so good. You know, kings of bling, man. But if this is your only, you know, vent on the engine, you might need to get the extender and run the baffle in it, because that baffle does serve a purpose for running your fuel pump if you're running a fuel pump off of that. But either way, those are the two problems that you run into with putting ratio rockers into a Hemi head. Let's see. Same go with the Hemi head. That's what I was just answering there about the Hemi head. Like I say, this is my 14.5 Outlaw engine. This is actually the engine, if y'all saw on Facebook here a while back, that was testing different style crankshaft. It's a stroker. This is a Honda block. It's been welded. Got gusset supports on it. It's bored 2815, and it's got one of our plus 75 stroker cranks in it. And this is the actual engine that I went down to the asphalt track and run, 125 laps at 9,300 RPMs, trying to break the crank, trying to break the rod, trying to break the block, trying to break something. Wound up breaking my spirit. But took it apart, looked at everything, and I got it back together, and I'm fixing to go race it until something flies out of it, regardless of what it is. It's a rough job I have, but by God, somebody's got to do it. Same problem with the guide on your roller. Yeah, if you go to ratio rockers, you've got to go with the ratio guide plate. All right, Clarence is what? Is that Clarence? I can't see that. Clarence Bailey. Is that legal for AKA on the rockers? Is exactly what are you asking? Because that was a while back. I should have been looking at. There's that question again. I gotta repeat it. I'm sorry. Brandon Johnson says, "Don't worry. There's a reason why we call you and not Hunter." Oh, and even Hunter says, "No doubt." Okay, well, I'm off the hook on that one. Good deal. Robert Dale Spencer Jr. I will never go live from the machine shop. Ever. It ain't gonna happen. The people that hand me my paycheck every Friday says it ain't gonna happen, so it ain't gonna happen. We've got other reasons than that, but I mean, I'll go live from the shop one day. Maybe do a live on a Saturday or something like that, Sunday afternoon from the engine shop up there. But no. The EV6 cam, that's the Eric Voss cam. I don't know, I haven't used that one yet. I've used his 4, his 3 and his 4. They're good cams. I mean, all these cams are, they're good cams, and they have their benefits as far as the AKRA, NKA type stuff, the low duration. But, unless you're checking your center lines and making sure the cam is where it needs to be as far as the center lines, especially because, on the stock crankshafts, the cam gears can be off a little bit. You can have a really good cam like the Eric Voss cams and it not perform well because the gear's off a little bit and your center lines don't really need to be. Same thing with the dyno cam, the new CL4 that's out. If it's not you know, the center lines aren't where they're supposed to be, it's not going to perform where it needs to. But this, from the CL2 up, the BSP3 up, all of them cams are really good cams. You know, the old Shoe 2 cams are really, really good. But you've got to have the center lines set right on them, or they're not going to perform to their full potential. What's the max lift for a Predator with a big carb? As much as you want it. But there again, whenever you get into high lift, high duration things, you've got to upgrade everything. You can't just put better springs in it. If you're going to want to run a 308 with some 1 to 3 rockers on it, that's like 410 lift. That's a lot of lift in one of these engines. That's not a lot in a flathead, but it's a lot in one of these overhead valve engines. You got to go with, you know, good valves, stainless valves, you know, billet retainers. And speaking of retainers, let me get them with this first though. You got to go with, you know, good billet rockers, chromoly push rods, the best of the best, because with added lift and duration comes added RPMs. You put a high lift cam, you know, a 308 or a 310 or a 356 in an engine and try to turn it 6,000, it's not going to get out of its own way. Those bigger cams like that, more lift, more duration, means more RPMs to make the cam run. That's why, you know, modifieds, you've got to run higher lift cams. I mean, not saying that a stock lift cam with ratio rockers won't work good in a mild modified engine, but stuff like this right here, this 14.5, that's got a 310 in it with 1 to 2s. So, you know, we're looking at, what, 370 lift in this thing. You're going to have to turn this engine 8,500 plus to get all the power out of it that's in it, because it's also got, you know, bigger valves in it. It's got a 28 millimeter on the intake, which is in between where a lot of people like to run. You know, most people like to run 30s and 32s. I like to keep my valves 28 to 30, and I also run smaller carburetors than most people do for, you know, throttle response and all. But anyway, off topic. But you can go as much lift as the engine will allow, or as big a cam as they make. I think they make a 360 lift cam. But even with a big carburetor, you know, that it takes, you know, good head porting and all. When I build stock appearance and stuff, I like to stay with moderate lift cams and use ratio rockers rather than going to just a big high lift cam, because you have different aspects of the way the cam works and different RPM ranges that they like to work in. I'll put a moderate lift cam with moderate duration with 1 to 3 rockers, and that makes it a better performing cam. But you can go as big as you want. Now, like I said, with retainers, in this engine down here, I had the billet aluminum retainers. Now, with 26-pound springs and 36-pound springs, you run different retainers on these springs, and we sell one of each. The 1146 retainer is made for the 37-pound spring. If you see, the spring fits it right. This retainer will not work with a 26-pound spring. It won't even go in it, because the 26-pound spring has a smaller ID than the 37 or 36, whatever it is. So you have to use the retainer for the 26-pound spring, which is a DJ 1147. You know, you can't swap the retainers back and forth, because you put the 26-pound retainer in the 36-pound spring and it's going to move around. You're going to have metal shavings all in your oil, and you're going to wonder where it comes from. It's coming off of this. Now, not only do we have the billet aluminum retainers that come, you know, with the keepers and everything, we also have them in titanium. You say titanium to a crowd like this, and like the hair stands up on the back of their neck. Oh, titanium! The strength of steel, the lightweight of aluminum. Now, this one is the DJ 1147, which is made for the 26-pound spring. As you see, it fits it good. It don't move around. It fits the inside of the spring, you know, very tight and very well. Now this, you put it on the 36 and see how much it moves around? That's what it's going to do the entire time at 8,000 RPMs when you're running this engine. And even titanium will wear, and you'll have spring shavings and metal shavings in your oil. So be sure with, if you're running, you know, the 22s or the 26s, you need to get the 1047 retainers. If you're running the 36s, you need to get the 1046 retainers and make sure the retainers fit the spring properly. Now, if you're going to run some dual springs, the duals that we sell, heck, was a piece of fuzz. The duals that we sell come with their own retainers and keepers in the pack. It's a kit. You get all 4 springs, which you get an inner and an outer, and you get your retainer and your locks all in one kit. That's usually a better way to go for modifieds. But Boone is in the house. Is what legal? And everything's illegal on your engine. You know that. Big old billet piece of thing sitting up there, 5,000 horsepower, breaking chains and stripping clutches. The billet 1.5, yeah, those are Clement's rockers. I know he makes those, but man, that's a lot of stress on parts there. I really don't like going over a 1 to 3 rocker. If I need more lift than that, then I go to a bigger cam. Yeah, there you go, Mr. Max. You know, I said earlier with the gauge rockers, you know, I don't run the guide plate. You know, I never really have. I've never seen a need for it, and the man that makes them says you don't need them. So there you go. And he's saying also that he now has the 1 to 1.35 ratio, which is a little longer than 1 to 3. Do they make them for animals? I'm not sure. The gauge man is on here. Mr. Max, do you make these for the animal? 3228 big valve head. That's going to take a big carburetor, a big cam, and some big RPMs to make run. If I'm going to run a 32 millimeter head, I'm going to have a 3-inch bore, you know, 425 lift, and a gigantic carburetor on it. Nothing for the animals yet. Okay, he's already answered that. I'm that far behind on questions. Well, let's see. Yada, yada, yada. Ah, there you go. And I've actually wondered this myself, and Mr. Max just answered it to me, that the adjuster should be around flush with the bottom of the... Oh, they're still on the engine. Let me take them off real quick and show y'all what he's talking about. Sorry for the dead noise there, but what he's saying is, if you've got your rocker angle correct, that the adjuster right in here right here should be flush with the bottom of the rocker. You see how it's flush up in there? Like that. And also, it should be almost in the area of being flush up here. That's something that I have noticed, that, you know, when the rocker angle was where it's supposed to be, this Allen bolt, the actual adjuster, not the lock nut, but it should be in the vicinity of being either a little under the level or a little above it. Not a lot above or below, but somewhere in that area like that right there. That's how it should look if the rocker angle is right. And that is something I've noticed, and something I've been meaning to ask him for a while and just never did. Because he and I have the same problem. We're so busy during the day that we can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, how you doing? All right, and I'll say this every video that I can't always see all the questions on here. You know, other people can. Most of the time, I can't see them until after the video is loaded. Then I'll usually go back and answer the ones that I missed. Yep, another way to measure pushrod length. You know, 41 thousandths per turn on the gauge rockers can help you measure your length. Corona, I hope I'm saying your name right. Corona or Corona. If you can, give me a call tomorrow, and we'll go over some probable causes that you can't find the right length on your setup. I'll be glad to talk to you. Just give me a call at the shop. I'll give you my number here at the end, and we'll go over a few things and kind of see what's going on. Some people. I've always heard the expression, with friends like mine, who needs enemies? Obviously, y'all ain't got friends like mine. Yeah, Jason Lee, that is correct. Mini bike guys, growing in leaps and bounds. Everything I do, whether it's, you know, for stock or modified or whatever, it also carries over to mini bike guys. I mean, this isn't just for karting or junior dragsters. You know, it's for mini bikes too. I mean, that's a very the mini bike world is growing big, and I've talked to hunters several times, and I want to build some type of mini bike apparatus. You know, put a huge engine on them, put 5 engines on it, or do something, just something that's way out there. But yeah, mini bike world, all the mini bike guys out there, you know, big shout out. You know, send me some of y'all team shirts or series shirts or club shirts. I'll be glad to wear them, you know, and advertise for y'all. And you know, y'all's little series and stuff y'all run, is y'all are a big part of our business. And you know, we thank for all the mini bike guys, all the karting guys, all of our customers. Tom, we've been talking about going to the Ohio kart show. We went last year, had a really good time, met a lot of people. It was cold as it was cold. when I wake up and it's in double digits and my little old scrawny butt walks outside, I almost freeze up, and I can't stand that weather. But I really still haven't made up my mind if we're going yet or not, or we haven't made up our mind. I'm willing to go. It's just we're going to be in the Tennessee kart show next weekend, next Saturday. Me and David will be up there. And then the Ohio show is 2 weekends away from that, and that's kind of hard to get back from that show, regather everything, and then go 10 hours up the road and do it again. I'm going to try to go. We haven't made any definite plans yet or not, so I'm not 100% sure. I ain't even responding to that, Jeff, really. The auction. I don't auction off my stuff. I'm sorry. If it's my personal stuff, you want it, you're going to buy it. I went through the trouble of building it. Yeah, I don't auction. I'm glad a lot of people doing that, though. That is a good thing people doing with these raffles and auctions and all. I mean, you know, all jokes aside, that is good, that what people are doing. Thought about doing it, but I ain't got the time to do all that stuff. Man, you're lucky I got time to do this. The cost on the gauge rockers, Lord, I just had a complete brain fart. I want to say they're $200, $190, $200, worth every penny. The other rockers, you know, like the NR rockers, the billet ones like this, they're around $100, $110. The little stamp ones, they're around $10, $12. But remember, you get what you pay for. You know, the NR ones, and especially the gauges ones, you know, they're worth every penny you pay for. They're good stuff. Maine. I think that's the first time I've got a Maine. Welcome. Costa Rica. Hueytown. There's some other famous people that come from Hueytown. I can't remember who they was. A couple of, I think, old race car drivers or something. Oh my God. Folks, if y'all could scroll up in the questions to right here, Miss Karen Amundsen, that is, she's got to be drinking tonight, or she's got to be on some type of hallucinant, or somebody's hit her in the head very, very hard, because she just come up on here and told me I'm doing a good job. Either she's drinking or she's going to fire me tomorrow. So one of those two. But anyway, if y'all would screenshot that for me, that would be awesome, to prove that she actually told me good job before she fired me. Thank you, Miss Karen. I try hard for you. All right. I'm getting down to I hope to enter these questions. A lot of this is people talking amongst themselves. Contacts is running around. Yeah, thank you for coming on tonight, Mr. Max. I really appreciate that. Mr. Max with Gauge Rockers. Kevin, you got a 2815 stock crank. You'll probably get by with it, you know, not welding the block. If it's a Honda block with a stock crank with a good billet side cover, the Honda blocks are good. The stock cranks don't put as much pressure on the blocks because they actually flex. You know, this billet material that we use here is really dense. I mean, it flexes, but it's got a different aspect to it, and it actually puts a little more pressure on the block itself than the stock crankshafts do. So you'll probably get by with that. But my setup here for my 14.5 is, you know, so I got the 310 in it with 1 to 2s, 28 mil valve. Got a lot of head work done. In fact, this head is broken here. I don't know if any of y'all noticed that. It's broken, welded, and epoxy, because I've done so much work to the head that I didn't want to throw it away. Yeah, 1 to 2s, 310s, 28, 25. It's actually got our stroker kit in it. And I run a 304 Tillotson on most of my stuff. I know a lot of people run 360s and 380s. I run the smaller carburetors for throttle response. You know, the 360s to me would probably be a better carburetor for this, because it's kind of in the middle of the 304, 380 type thing. But the big 380s, they're such a big carburetor that I've had some instances where they've been kind of sluggish off the corner, and then right before the flag stand, they bust the tires loose because they just come to life. And you know, I almost made it through tonight. Hey, buddy, come here. I'm almost done. There ain't many people on here. If you're gonna blow a kiss to it, you gotta get it real close. Hey, look here behind me. What is that right there? What is that right there?
A piston cup.
Is that your piston cup? Go get your piston cup and show everybody. Go pick it up. He calls this his piston cup, y'all. Actually, he's got another one. Oh, easy, right here. All right, tell everybody what that is.
A piston cup.
Say it louder.
Piston cup.
It's a piston cup.
Hmm.
Is that your piston cup?
Yeah.
It is.
A piston cup, Mama.
How many piston cups do you got now?
2.
You got 2. How many do you want Daddy to get for you?
1.
One more? You want one more? You heard that, Mr. Joe and Darren, Rob, all of you. I got to win one more, so y'all help me out. Landon wants 3. But anyway, yeah, most of y'all know the story of the other cup I won. I got some stickers made and put piston cup on it because he was all into cars and stuff, and it's in his room, which is where that one goes to. When I walked in the door coming from Daytona, the first thing he asked me was, Daddy, where's my piston cup? So anyway, all right, 2815. I run a 304 Tillies for throttle response, but that's my setup here. You know, I run a lot of the engines I run the PVL ignition on, but this one's got the standard 6602 with the stock ignition on it. Like I said, this engine, we turn it. This is the one I took down there and tried to blow up 9300 for 125 laps on one oil change. But anyway, that's what I'm running. No, Chris Hines, you don't have to bore the block to. I keep looking at her. My wife's got one of them little Glade things that like sprays out every few minutes, and she just got it. And I keep thinking there's something over hissing at me, but it's that thing blowing out. If you stroke an engine, you don't necessarily have to bore it. Stroking, will add to the cubic inches. Will make more power. The shaft is balanced. You're going to get more power there along with the stroke, but you don't necessarily have to bore it. But one thing I will say about stroking and boring is with our billet crankshafts, they're balanced to a certain piston size, stock bore size for, Hondas and the Predators. When you get up to above 2815 or above the Predator up to 2815, 2.9 and 3 inch, those pistons are so much bigger that it's a good idea to get this crankshaft rebalanced to that bigger piston, because that's a bigger piston, there's more mass that the shaft is having to start and stop, and it can throw the shaft out of balance a little bit. But if you're using the stock bore pistons, probably 2815 is probably still in the okay range as long as you use a full-size flywheel, like the 6689 like we got here, the short fin one, or the finless PVL, or the little 3-horse diameter. But anything above that is really, really a good idea to get this crankshaft, checked and rebalanced. But you don't have to bore it out just to put a crankshaft in it, or a stroker shaft. Ducar 212 valve float with 10/8 springs. I don't know. I've got one of the Ducar engines. We took it apart to build a connecting rod for it, and I've yet to put it back together and do any testing with it. So, as always, I'm behind on that because I'm just busy with other things. But from the way it looks with the cam that's in it and the rockers that's in it, you're looking at around the same RPM that the Predator 212s do. Probably somewhere in the area of 58 to 6,000 with 10.8 springs on it. Okay. Cameron, the Predator crankshaft is going to do fine with pretty much any cam you put in there. The 275 cam if you're running the F275 cam with the roller tip steel rockers, that's the minimum I'd recommend on it. I would not recommend this on the F275 cam at all. But the roller tip rockers, and we got these in 1-2s and 1-3s, with some good 36-pound springs would probably be good with the stainless valves. You could probably get high 7s to 8,000 out of it. But the F275 is a really aggressive cam. Open animal, the F275 1-2s. You put the right carburetor on it with some good head work, and that would be a beast. The F275 it's an aggressive cam, and it works hard on the valve train, but it's a really good cam with ratio rockers. You put a big valve head on it with a nice carburetor, yeah, you got a beast there. Top plate kit that we sell that goes on a 212 Predator. The non-Hemi Predator is a part number DJ1144, and the Hemi Predator takes the same one as a clone, which is a DJ1146 or 1145. A 375 Isky. Woo, that's a big cam. What kind of rockers are you running on that? 38mm valve on a 28mm Mikuni. Alright, I meant to bring my 390 tonight in here to show the gauge 390 rockers, because we got the gauge rockers for the 390 also. But I'm running a 38mm valve in it with a 35mm carburetor on it. Works great. A lot of low end grunt. Now, it runs out a carburetor, up around 7,800, 8,000, which is all I'm going to turn it anyway. But that smaller carb with that bigger valve at is going to give you a lot of bottom end. But unless you've got your head work done right and the right cam ratio and all, it's going to run out a little bit on top end. Not a lot. I'm not saying it's going to fall on its face, depending on what kind of springs and cam you got. But the bigger valve, smaller carb is going to be you know, really good throttle response and really good, you know, bottom end. Kevin, I'm assuming that's the 2815 block. Yeah, you can, you know, I've got some pictures somewhere of some blocks that I've done. There's some people that make some stuff that go behind the flywheel that bolt up. This area right here, you know, you can make a piece that goes to them 4 bolts, you know, right here. But you got to make sure that you know, shape it and shave it so that the flywheel will still fit on there and go inside of it. But yeah, that brace up the block a little bit, that'll help. Billet side cover, that'll help. This engine right here, when I initially built it, this 14.5 here, when I initially built it, it had a clone style head on it, which means the valves go straight up and down. They're not canned, you know, but had the gauge rockers on it. Same cam, same everything else, just a different head. And that one was around 14 to 1. Typically, I don't run that much. Usually, I don't get over 12 to 1. You know, static compression to me only goes so far. And with these engines, you can get too much compression on them because there's only one cylinder working. You know, V8, you can run 14, 15 to 1 because when this piston on this side is compressing, the piston on this side is just fired and it's pushing the crankshaft up, so it kind of helps it. This engine, you got one piston doing everything, doing the compression, the combustion, everything. You get above 13 to 1, and unless you've got some really good head work done, you might be losing power on top end. Just from what I've seen, you know, dyno don't lie. So typically, I'm between 12 and 13 to 1 on these engines, but this one was 14 to 1 when I first done it. And I used the multi-layer, 27 thousandths multi-layer gasket like this. Actually, it's right here. Some of the stuff I've had left at the house here that I need to be taken back to work, and you know, if somebody called in one day and we didn't have a gasket, more than likely it was here because of a show. Sorry, but these multi-layered Cometic gaskets that, you know, they're stapled or riveted together. I had a 27 thousandths gasket on it, and it made 120 laps at 9300 before it blew out. That's not the gasket that I'd recommend putting on these. Now, and I went back with my Hemi head. This Hemi head's got a little bit of combustion chamber work, but I went back with the 2.815 fire ring gaskets. Dyno's got them, Cometic's got them, but the 41 thousandths gasket, this engine right now is probably just up around 12 to 1 with the thick gasket on it. But I like running the fire ring gaskets on them. They hold up a whole lot better. I mean, those metal Cometics are good for stockers, mild modifieds, and things like that. But when you get up into some serious horsepower with some serious compression, you're making some serious fire in there. You know, even though the block is welded, it's still moving around a lot. Look at your dial pins. Where are they at? When they come out of the head, the dial pins that go in, then you put the head on. Get a modified engine that you've been turning, you know, 8,000, 8,400, something like that for a while. And when you take the dial pins out the head, you'll notice that there's wear marks on them. You know, why is the dial pins wearing? Because that block is moving around, the head's moving around, and these metal gaskets, what happens is, at those high RPMs with the harmonics, it just kind of rubs the coating off of it, then they blow out. With these, it's hard to put these on and keep the valve sealed because they can, you know, another video I done a while back with all these gaskets, you know, showing how to keep the head from warping. But when these are installed right, these are very good gaskets. That's what's on these. That's what I usually run on modifieds, you know, with, you know, higher RPM and higher compression. Yeah, you have to run the guide plate with any ratio rocker. Anything over a 1-to-1 in stock rockers or 1-to-1. If it comes stock on the Clone, if it comes stock on the Predator non-Hemi, if it comes stock on the Hemi, all of those are 1-to-1 ratio, meaning the pivot point to the valve is basically the same distance to the pivot point of the Pushrod. If you run any ratio rockers, 1 to 2 and 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, you're gonna need the guide plate on the everything but the Hemi or the gauge rockers. Yeah, Robert, I assume you're talking about stripping out the adjusters and the gauge rockers. Yeah, if you run too short a push rod or too long a push rod, you don't have enough thread in the rocker, from just like with the rest of the engine. These rockers are going to twist around, not a lot. I mean, these things are really good. These rockers, they're all really good, but movement and harmonics are going to cause things to kind of wear funny if it's the push rod is too short or too long, and that can cause the adjuster, if there's not enough threads on it, to strip out. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Corona, because if I am, I agree with you. It is Corona time. Good. All ARC parts. That's good, man. We appreciate your business a lot. Appreciate you tuning in tonight, too. I always like to get in here and kick it up with the people that buy our products and use our products. Which is why I like going to these shows that I go to, because we get to, actually see the people that we talk to on the phone, and I get to hear all the "you look taller on TV" things, And this is why I got this new chair. See, I can move it up and down. See now, and then back down to reality. But yeah, like meeting all the people that use our products, and and hear what they got to say face to face, and talk with them, answer any questions they got. But that's one of the reasons I like going to these shows, is just to meet everybody. And that's why I like doing this and seeing people getting involved with it. Makes us think that the karting world and the mini bike world are still going strong. Especially mini bike world is really growing good. Karting world is doing good. Mini bike world is really getting there. I'm not sure if we're going through Cooksville or not. But I don't make many stops. That's why people don't like going nowhere with me. Once I leave, I go. Like when I went to Ohio last year, it was a 10-hour drive one way. I think I stopped twice because I had to get gas. The only reason I stopped. I go. But we may make some stops somewhere. Not sure. All right. Look, I'm getting down to the end of... Like I say, if there's any questions that I missed, that I didn't see, I'll go back and answer after I post the video. How do you get into kart racing? It's a good question. Well, the first thing you do is Google kart racing in your area, wherever you're from. If you're from the States, or if you're from, South America, Central America, Canada, anywhere in Europe, wherever you're at, just Google go-kart racing in your area and go visit a track. And once you get there, talk with the people, talk with track owners, track promoters, the racers, and get with local parts vendors. People's willing and eager to get you set up in kart racing. You show up at a racetrack and say, I want to do this, and if somebody don't talk to you or want your business, then they don't want to be in business themselves. And the people in the karting world are always eager to get you started into any type of racing, whether it's kart racing, mini biking, lawnmowing. We'll do, whatever it takes, to get people what they need. I'll hook them up with kart shops or chassis people or tire people, whatever it takes. Biggest thing is to start out is Google the racing that's in your area, so that you know what type of kart race you need to get into. Because if you want to get into dirt kart racing and everything around you is asphalt and sprint racing, then you got to get into that type of racing. But just Google what's in your area and find out what you got and go from there. Willing and able, and you know, people's eager to get folks into karting. You know, because the more it grows, the better we all are. Couch is always available at my house because that's where I sleep most of the time. Yep, Eric, you're right, man. Kids is what it's all about. When I first started doing these videos, I know I'm talking long tonight, but he would come in here and I'd just kind of try to ease him back out. But I got people that would actually call up and get on to me saying, you know, don't rush your kid out. He wants to come in there, let him. And I've always wanted him in here, but I try to, believe it or not, I try to be professional sometimes. Not all the time, actually, very rarely. But it's times like this, I felt like I needed to be kind of professional, but then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, you know, karting, like I was telling the guy before, everybody, you know, people's eager to get you into the sport because it's a family sport, and that's what it's intended to be, and that's where it needs to stay. When it stops becoming a family sport or a fun sport, I don't want to be in it no more. And if I'm going to promote a family sport, I want to have my family in with it. So that's why I let him come in here anytime he wants to, you know. And I tell folks, if they don't like my kid coming in here, they can watch somebody else's show. But thank you. All right. Some of these questions are repeats. I think I've done something to my phone, and it's repeating the question. Okay. Old school Greyhound, 275 cam, champion rockers. Carburation. You know, boring and stroking an engine only does so much as to making power. Where the real power is made is in the head, in the carburation, and cam design. Bore and stroke just amplify what you do there. So, you know, the 275 cam, you know, go to some ratio rockers. If you go to ratio rockers, you might need a little bit more spring. Up your carburation. If you got a stock appearing carburetor on it, go to a 390 carburetor. If you got a 390 on it, go to a Tilson or a Mikuni. You got to remember, these engines are nothing but air pumps. You've got to get air in them to get power out of them. That'd be a cool t-shirt. If anybody does that, remember I'm the one that made it up, so I get a free one. You got to get air in it to get power out of it. That's going to be my new quote. But I'm copywriting that right now. Go up on your carburation. You know, if you got a small, you got a 275 cam on it with a big head and all, with a small carburetor, the engine's trying to breathe through a straw. You've got to get, you know, more air into it. But you can't go too big on a carb, but just baby steps. You know, if you, like I said, if you got a stock appearing, then go to a 390. 390 to a Tilliston. All right, I just got a low battery alert on my phone, so I'm fixing to have to wrap this up. Yeah, these questions are repeats. I don't know why they keep repeating. Timothy Hicks, yeah, we build, you know, clone engines. Give us a call, or give me a call at the shop, or send me a message. You know, we can get with you on clone engines like AKRA, NKA style motors. They run in the 900 range, depending on headers and, you know, if it's NKA type cam or porting. They run, you know, in the 900 range for race ready dyno tuned engines for AKRA, NKA. David, the only time I prefer a Hemi over a non-Hemi is in modified applications. And like I say, the Hemi is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the beginner builder. There's a lot of stuff you've got to go in there and do and modify and enlarge or whatever for clearancing issues. But from what the build engines that I build, the way I build them, the Hemi ported generally makes more overall power than the non-Hemi does. I may can get more peak or more bottom end or more top end out of the non-Hemi, but the Hemi I can make a longer, broader torque curve with the same build. you know, build a bottom end, take a Hemi head off, and put a non-Hemi on it, I can get a broader torque curve with it. But there's a lot of work that goes into it. Mississippi Mini Bikes. Drag races straight out of Compton. I hear you. I hear you. That's good, man. I'm glad the mini bike guys are joining in. You know, because you know, a lot of this applies to y'all too. You know, most of it does anyway. Like I say, any questions that I missed here, because a lot of them was repeating, and I don't know why. But anyway, any questions that I missed on here, I'll go back and answer after the video loads. I appreciate everybody stopping by tonight, joining in, giving a little piece of your time for me to run my mouth and show off my kid. But appreciate y'all stopping by. I'll do another video probably next month, because I got one, if not two, kart shows to do this month. So we'll be in the Tennessee show next weekend. Hope to see a lot of y'all there. Give us a call as always, 800-521-3560. Shoot me an email at jody@arcracing.com, or you can reach me through the ARC site here, private messaging or whatever. But he's got to come say bye. Come here. Come here. All right. Tell everybody bye.
Bye.
Say see y'all later.
See you later.
Don't look too excited. All right. Thank y'all for stopping by, and like I say, any more questions, just shoot me that's a Pushrod, baby. You know what a Pushrod is?
Yeah.
It's a booger getter. It's a booger getter. Just shoot me a message, and I'll answer any questions I missed on here after I load the video. Thank y'all, and see y'all next time. Say bye.
Bye.
Say take care.
Take care.
See you later, alligator.
See you later, alligator.